Well, hello, everyone. It's Jacquette Timmons of JacquetteTimmons.com, and I am just so excited to tell you about an upcoming event, American Dream, Rethinking Race, Gender, and Financial Success. That is the focus of this month's Financial Intimacy Hour. And I just cannot wait for us to dive into this conversation. In case you don't know, I do the Financial Intimacy Hour the last Wednesday of every month. And sometimes they are workshops, other times they are expert interviews, but at all times, the intent is to give you information, provide you with insight, and to make sure that you leave with tools that will enable you to get more from your money and more for your life. And talking about the American dream, which involves also talking about work and money, is certainly something that fits into that bill of helping you get more from your money and more for your life. Normally, the Financial Intimacy Hour is a virtual event, but this time we're switching it up a bit. We're doing it in person, and I'm so excited that my alma mater, Fordham University's Graduate School of Business, is hosting us. And that gives us an opportunity to not only have an in-person session, but for me to geek out with Dr. Atira Charles so that we can have this conversation about race, gender, and financial success. So, Atira, thank you so much for being here tonight.
I am so happy to be here tonight, and I am so excited about our event next week.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to, let me just set the context for everything so that everybody knows.
Okay.
So Atira and I met because we were both speakers at a conference, and I had an opportunity to sit in on her session. And it was one of those experiences where throughout I'm like nodding my head up and down, yes, and silently saying yes. And part of that was because I really appreciated her perspective and her approach, especially her teaching style, but just her message of, the trajectory, right? Emotions drive behavior, which drives your attitudes, and how all of that is shaped by your identity. And she was speaking at it from the perspective of how that influences how you show up at work. And I talk about that in terms of, what's going on with you and your money. Which is why whenever I am talking about money, it's never just about the numbers. It always incorporates the psychology and the emotions of money. So as she's, standing there and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, oh my God, we have got to do something together. So I was excited that she was amenable to that. I'm excited that her schedule was such that for this month, she could be here in New York, and that Fordham is giving us this space to do this live. So if you're in the New York City area, you know where you need to be on May 25th at 6 p.m. But I wanted to use this as an opportunity to not only introduce you to Atira before, but to also have us give you a little bit of a preview of what we're going to talk about. So I think to just kind of get us started on that front, Atira, if you could just take a moment and introduce yourself to our listeners, our viewers, and share with them what drives your research, and, give us a little preview of what we're going to dive into next week.
All right, sounds good. Hey, everybody, how are you? I'm so happy to be on this call tonight and so excited about next Wednesday's event. When I think about this idea of collaborating, it just makes me so excited because my work comes from this multidisciplinary way, right? So I have a PhD in business, but my focus is identity and diversity, which kind of has the psychology, social psychology, foundation. And so I'm all over the place. Anywhere there's content that makes sense to me, that, dig myself into. So when Jacquette and I met and we started talking about all of our different ideas and our perspectives, it was like, oh, this is perfect. So it's interesting, with Jacquette coming from finance and industry, me coming from academia and consulting, it was a perfect hodgepodge for us to kind of throw together this really awesome moment to engage. We can all come out and learn what we need to learn about ourselves, our money, and how that all comes together. Because if you think about it, a lot of the questions that we have about life revolve around this concept of right? What do we want to be when we grow up? What value does our degree have? What type of career do we want to go into? How much money do we want to have? How much is not enough? How much does it make? What does that make us feel like? And
Right.
so those are some of the things we're going to be digging into on next Wednesday, and I am so excited.
Me too. Me too. Well, it's really interesting because for people that are not familiar with me and you haven't been following me on my blog or you're not on my email list, over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about the intersection of love and money more intentionally. Love and money, work and money more intentionally. And in doing that and in preparing for that, some statistics that I came across that I just found really interesting was one, the Bureau of Labor statistics sharing that every the average worker today, I should say, is staying with their employer 4.4 years. And to me, the reason why that's significant is, as you know, from a business standpoint, we measure business cycles in 5-year increments. So what that is saying is that employees and employers are not continuing that relationship more than 5 years. It's 4.4 years. So that was the first thing that was like, wow, this is really deep. The other number came from a source, oh God, I think it's called Work Metric. You can see the blog post to see the exact quote because I do quote it. But they're saying that a third of the working American population, which equates to about 42 million people, are identified or estimated to be freelancers. And the projection is that that number by 2020 is going to increase to 50%. So I think of those two numbers from the perspective of people that work as employees or are invited to work as entrepreneurs because they got downsized. And then I think of people that are intentional business owners and that fall into that micro business enterprise category, which I fall into, which I believe you fall into as well, and that you are a company that really is a firm of 1 to 4 employees. Well, we are employing those micro businesses. Number one, they represent 17% of the gross domestic product, and they are employing 31 million people. So I think about just the whole shift that's happening in terms of the economic and the employment landscape, especially ever since, the Great Recession. And I think about how that influences what people define and experience as the American dream and how those invisible factors of race and gender fall into that. And so...
Right. It's so interesting because when you think about that, I look at things through the lens of identity, right? So we all have a variety of different identities that next week we're going to be focusing mostly on race and gender, but there's a whole host of identities that we may have that are rooted in our experiences, rooted in our personalities. And when we think about those numbers and statistics you just gave, that means that we have a whole collective, right, within our society that is a structure of corporate or organizational bureaucratic working, right? Whole idea of identity alignment and aligning with businesses and ideas and visions and missions that connect with whatever identities we may have.
Right.
And so I really see it as this shift from kind of structure to freedom.
Yes.
But as we know, as we kind of move from this structure to freedom, that freedom has a cost.
Right, exactly.
Freedom has a price. Okay.
Exactly. But it's funny that you would say that because I wanted to ask you in the time that we have today, can you elaborate a little bit on role identity and, what does it mean when you look at that through the prism of race and gender as it pertains to the American dream, both in terms of how we've traditionally defined that and then that, nebulous space of people trying to redefine it and figure out what does that mean for them?
Right. So it's so interesting. So I like the metaphor of a pie, right? So if we're all one big pizza, we have all of these different slices. And in the American context, we have what I like to call the usual suspects, right? Race, gender, age, religion, station, political affiliation, right? So those are the things that start to define us. When we meet people and do our invisible interviews and do our virtual scans, And those are the categories that we are assessing people on.
Right.
So if we're assessing people on those things, that also means that that's our framework that we're assessing ourselves on.
Right.
So when we start to think about what it means to live the American dream, we're really kind of thinking about this whole of what does it mean to be black? What does it mean to be white? What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to intersect? What does it mean to be a white man in America, a white woman, a black man? And when we kind of go back historically, there's this whole narrative around what it means.
Right.
I remember I was at and it was a very successful Fortune 500 CEO took climb to that space, an African-American male. And he said, you know, when I graduated from college, I remember my mom, she just had this look on her face, and she was just, I said, Mom, and he said, Mom, what are you thinking about? What are you smiling about? You're happy I graduated? And she said, no, I'm just happy that you're going to have a job where you get to wear a tie and you'll be inside with air conditioning, right? So when you think about the narrative shift from that generation to him, and then, you know, go into the young millennial crew,
right.
It's like, whoa, what does it mean, the way that a parent has, what does the college degree mean? What does this new financial success mean?
Right.
Especially when you have a lot of people that are overqualified and underemployed.
Yeah, exactly,
right? And
exactly.
So this whole idea of
exactly
things to be has shifted. You know, everyone can't afford the 3,000 square foot house and the white picket fence and the car.
Right.
And I think that there's an American dream that if I go to college, especially if I get a graduate degree, that's what the reality will be. And what's happening is people are hitting a place where they're realizing that makes, and where identity comes back in with that is, if that is what we're measuring ourselves on, right, whatever this metric of success is, whatever this metric of achievement is, when we focus on that, it then makes us feel, be it anxious about different identities we have. It can instill fear. It can instill self-doubt. It can instill insecurities, and then we know by psychological research that if you're feeling all of those things, you're not at your highest well-being point.
Exactly.
You're not at your highest ability to execute the workplace
right.
in your personal life. So
right.
now at work things are messed up. Now your relationships are messed up. When you're, what I like to call pillow talk, when you're just laying by yourself at night and the lights are off, that's all messed up, are stuck and confused.
Right.
And what I'm really excited about with next week is for us to really dig in and help people sort through all of those things, because people are asking themselves that question. What does it mean
Absolutely.
to be in the place?
Absolutely.
Where am I trying to go?
Right.
You know, what premise and assumptions did I do everything that I've done up to this date for?
Right.
Is it for this dream? If it's a dream, do I need to kind of do a reality check and come back to reality on it? Is it a nightmare? Do I need to kind of assess that? You know, what do I need to recalibrate here? So I'm really getting into all of that next week.
And so is my cat. I don't see if you saw, he walked across the screen.
Listen,
oh my God.
Living his American dream.
You know? But I'm really, really, really am excited about our conversation next week and all that you've shared. And, you know, I want to just end, because I just wanted to give people a kind of a preview of what we're going to talk about. And so I want you to just share, if you would, I wrote here one takeaway, because everything that you said, obviously it resonates with me. I geek out about it. But some people might be listening and thinking, wow, that's really 30,000 foot. So what would be one takeaway to like kind of bring that down to the 500 foot level so that someone has something that they could implement? What would be one or two takeaways that you would give for that?
Okay, so the first step is engaging in self-reflection, right? And here's the difficult part about that. The mirror sometimes is scary, right? Because when you hold up the mirror, now you have to look at all those insecurities. Now you have to look at all of those fears, right? Now you have to have these thoughts of, wow, someone kind of sold me you here, right? And some people feel like that.
Right. They sold me a bill of goods. Right.
You know, so the first strategy would be to take the moments to be still and reflect about what that means for you.
Right.
Because in life, it's so easy to just keep moving that we don't check, right,
Mm-hmm.
internally with ourselves and have those moments of introspection to see, how do I feel about this?
Right.
Because once you're aware your attitudes about it, it then allows you to move into this space where you can engage in these actionable behaviors.
Right.
So what would be a behavior that you can engage in if you're in that space? One, here to decrease the anxiety. So figuring out what those stressors are.
Mm-hmm.
So is it that your spending is a stressor for you?
Right.
Is it that your job type is a stressor for you? Is it that there's a goal that you set that you haven't accomplished yet? Is it that you have a dream based on a dual income household and it's a single one, right? All of these things kind of come together that people have to really flesh through and think through. And so we're going to have a lot of strategic behaviors and actionable items that people can dig into next week.
Fantastic. And one of the things that I'm definitely going to make sure that we do is the signature exercise of mine called the financial wheel, which will allow people to really see to what extent they are, if at all, living by design versus living by default. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with people whom have never done it before. And for those who have, to have them redo it and see what aspects of it have changed or stayed the same. So folks, again,
Right.
May's Financial Intimacy Hour is the American Dream, rethinking race, gender, and financial success. My guest that evening will be Dr. Atira Charles. And as you can see, just from this brief conversation, it's going to be lively, it's going to be action-packed, and not only will it give you something to think about, but it will absolutely leave you with a number of things to do and to implement over time. So, the registration link to join us next week will be right beneath this video. It is a free event, but you must register, and you must register by Tuesday, May 27th at midnight. And that is because we need to have a list of everybody that's attending for security purposes. So all of that information will be provided to you when you register and you get your confirmation email. But I just want you to know that we are so excited that you are going to be joining us. We are really looking forward to helping you redefine your American dream and to have it your way, as a fast food chain would say. So, Atira, thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight. Yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. And I think those that attend are going to get a lot out of it. So, again, join us May 28th, 6 p.m.
Everybody there.
Yes, awesome. Bye.
Good night, everybody.